Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Alrighty. Zoom is doing this interesting thing again, where you all are in the waiting room, but you're already in class. All right. We are looking at making sure that you have completed your worksheets for Punnett squares, mono. I'll quickly go over those again. Do a brief. I got half the people have turned it in and half of you have not. But they are due. They've been due. Okay, so I will quickly go over that with you. At least the ones that I had already shown you. I'll run through those real quick. And then we're going to look at blended inheritance. So that's where we are in Canvas. All right, so I'm looking at good morning. All right, so let me first pull up where we should be in Canvas while we wait for a couple of more people to come in. All right, so I'm going to go over the first part of this worksheet with you again to those of you who might still be struggling. And folks, this is review also because their midterm exams are next week and yours, actually y'all get to be last. Fourth period is Friday the 6th. So you have some extra time to review. So let me, in case y'all weren't paying attention to the slideshow on your front page and you don't know that midterms are next week. All right, so if you look at the second slide in the slideshow, woo, there's the midterms. 9-week exams are next week. Fourth period exam is the last one on Friday the 6th. That's next Friday. We will have a cumulative exam as far as going from January to now. So that's covering cell reproduction with more emphasis on meiosis than mitosis because meiosis goes along with genetics. And we're still going to be talking about for the rest of the week, we're still going to be talking about inheritance and genetics and specialized chromosomes and such. And all of this is going to be, and I'm sorry, I keep saying, I'm telling multitasking. I'm trying to let people in, check messages, and tell you what's going on at the same time. So let me focus. All right, so your exam is on cell reproduction and genetics. And we're not finished with genetics. We still have a topic that we're going to do today and pedigree. So tomorrow we're going to look at pedigree. So we still have types of inheritance. That's what we're doing today, pedigree. And this activity goes with pedigree. And then we'll look at karyotyping. So we still have a little bit to do. We might not get it all done by next week, but we are going to test as much as we get done. So we definitely get as far as pedigree is concerned. And we'll worry about karyotyping later on. Okay, so keep that in mind. We are going to get that far for the test next week. So it'll cover this unit on genetics and this unit on cell reproduction, which is mitosis and meiosis and sexual and asexual reproduction. So 2 units test next week, Friday. All righty. That being said, this is where we are today. All right, let me change. Oops, my share screen disappeared. Why did it do that? Was I even sharing in the first place? Okay, let me get it back. And let me share the answer sheet. This one. All right, so I quickly want to go over this with you. And then we're going to look at, because we're going to look at different types of inheritance. So right now what we're looking at is what they call, like it says, monohybrid cross. We're just looking at one characteristic, and we're looking at it in terms of there's definite dominance. One trait is definitely dominant over the other, but that's not always the case. So again, you have to remember that you're always going to get these little word sentences that tell you what they want you to know, and then who they want you to cross. So you read the sentence. I'm starting with number one. And in that first line, they're telling you that if they're tall is a characteristic, and it's dominant, because we know it's dominant because it's got a capital T. Short is the other characteristic we're going to look at, and it's recessive. And again, vocabulary, know the difference. Dominant means we're going to see it's going to be the thing that is going to show. Recessive is going to be the one that is hidden unless you have both. Okay, so if you have a dominant and a recessive, the dominant one is going to hide, or sometimes they call it mask, the recessive trait. Recessive trait doesn't disappear, it's going to be there, which is why we have genotypes. Okay, so when we talk about genotypes, we're talking about what genes are actually there, even though we don't see them. All right, so in this particular one, number one, they said heterozygous tall plant. If it says heterozygous, that means both alleles are not the same. So that in this case, we have a capital T and a short t. They're not the same. It's the same would be like this one over here, two shorts, they're the same, which is what they say. Short plant, we know that in order for it to be short, it had to have both recessive genes, because short is recessive. All right, we know all of that just from the sentence. Okay. All right, so again, on the first line, we wrote down the genotype, what genes are present. The heterozygous tall plant has to be big T, little t. The short plant has to be little t, little t. And you put the X in the middle because we're crossing them. Okay, so it says a cross between. So that's how you would write that. You put a little X in the middle. The gametes, remember from meiosis, we create gametes. Those are the sex cells. So in the sex cells that make the new individual, and we're simplifying this. This is not the only gene that's in that gamete, but that's the only gene we're looking at today. Okay, we're looking at the genes big T and little t. So in this particular box, that's one gamete. This box is another gamete. This box is another gamete and another gamete. So we got 4 gametes going on here, which is what we end up with during meiosis at the end. And then what we're looking at is the top is usually the mom, the side is usually dad. The other thing I want to point out too, we always use the letter, and then I'm going to correct that when we watch the video. We always use the letter of the dominant trait. We don't use both. We're not using T and S. We're using T and big T and little t. Okay, because T is the dominant characteristic. So these are rules that you have to remember when you're doing traits. This is why I keep stopping and dragging it out. It may seem like I'm dragging it out, but I'll need you to know what all the rules are, because you can figure this out without doing the Punnett square if you know what all the rules are. All right. So this one is a heterozygous with a recessive parent. And in the box, we take the one from the top, one from the side, you put it in the box, one from the top, one from the side, put it in that box, top, side, this box, top, side, that box. All right. So now we've completed the Punnett square. That was the third step in our procedure. Now we have to read it. We need to tell me what that means. All right, so in our first box, you have big T, little t, but then this one down here is also big T, little t. So we have 2, and as far as genotypes are concerned, two heterozygous tall plants because the capital T is dominant. Tall is dominant. So they are heterozygous tall. And then you have two of these little t's. So we have two heterozygous short plants. Okay. And so our ratio, when they ask you for the ratio, and you all know from math, ratios are written like this. So this is 2 to 2. And then the phenotype is we're only talking about what we see. So we don't have to say heterozygous or homozygous. You just say tall or short. So we have two tall and two short. So the ratio here is also 2 to 2. That's not always the case. When we get over here for the second example, we are combining two heterozygous guinea pigs, and black fur is dominant over white fur. So heterozygous, when we write the genotype, it is capital B, little b, because again, black fur is the dominant trait, so we are using the letter B. Then as far as gametes are concerned, we separate the two and we put them in the boxes here and the other parent over here, and then we match them out. Now, this is also a rule, okay? If you have two heterozygous individuals, they will always produce one homozygous dominant and then two heterozygous dominant and one homozygous recessive. They will always do that. Okay, no matter what traits you give, if both of them are heterozygous, the four offspring, and then these are possibilities, okay? They could all of them could be the first one, all of them could be the last one. These are the possibilities. So that's another thing you need to remember. Punnett squares are the possible offsprings that can be reproduced from these parents. All right. So this is what the boxes read. So when we do our genotype, it is 1 to 2 to 1. And then that's genotype. Phenotype, we only want to know what we're looking at. So we're looking at 3 of them have black fur, 1 of them has white fur. So then the phenotype is 3 to 1. Okay, so that's different than the first one. And then this third one is different again. So we have a homozygous dominant with a heterozygous individual for free earlobes. So the homozygous dominant has two letters that are the same, and dominant is capital A. Heterozygous means that they have a capital A and a recessive A, and we put those in our boxes, and notice that we ended up with two homozygous attached ears and two heterozygous attached ears. And that gives us a 2 to 2 genotype ratio, but it gives us 100% in our phenotype because all of them have attached ears. Okay, so you don't have to do a ratio for this one because you're not saying 4 to 4. You're saying 100% of them will have attached ears. Okay. All right. So you had to do that for I'm not doing the rest of them. You should have done them. You should have turned them in all right. I just checked. Some of you still have to do it. 4 of you have done it and the rest of you are late. All right. So that's just a review of that activity. So today, and I'm going to have to stop sharing to get back to the other page. Okay. We're going to all right, so that was that one. So in Canvas, I want everybody to be in Canvas. We are looking at types of inheritance. Okay. All right, Andrew is never late. What happened? All right, good morning, Andrew. We are in Canvas, and we are in the section that types of inheritance. All righty, and that's a crazy little joke there. But the 4 types of inheritance that we're going to look at are these right here. So basically what we just looked at was um, complete dominance. So we want to, and the video that I'm going to show, she's going to create what we call a graphic organizer, and she's going to go through all of these. But like I said, what we just did with the worksheet, this would have been complete dominance, where one characteristic is definitely dominant over the other. So all of the things that we just did would be considered complete dominance. Then we have incomplete dominance. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. All righty. And I haven't done attendance yet, but I will in a minute. So incomplete dominance, there where uh and they gave the example of straight hair and curly hair. So straight hair is dominant and curly hair is recessive, but in this case, they kind of blend. So you don't get straight or curly, you get wavy, kind of an in between. So that's incomplete dominance. We're not straight and we're not curly, we're wavy. All right, so that's incomplete. Then we have codominance. There are, and the classic example of this is blood typing, where everything is dominant. So A is dominant, B is dominant, and O means you have neither an A protein nor a B protein. So that's what O is. So, but you can have type, and then let me show you here when you click on that arrow. All right, so of the 4 different blood types that you can have, genotypically, to be an A person, you can be expressed 2 ways, where you have 2 capital A letters, or you have an A and an O, where you don't have a second allele, but the A is dominant, so that you're still classified as type A. Type B, either have both alleles are B, or you have one B and the other is absent. So that's what this type O really means, the gene is not there. All right, then you can have AB where both are expressed. And if you have both of them, then you're type AB. You're not A or B, you're type AB. And if you have neither one, you're type O. Okay, you have neither one. The alleles don't have either one of those genes on it, so you're type O. I'm type O. A lot of people are type O. Okay, so that's codominance. Sex-linked means that the chromosome is only found, the gene is only found on the X or Y chromosome. So all the rest of your chromosomes, we have 23 pairs, remember, humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Only the last set are your X and Y. All the rest are called autosomes, and they can have all those other characteristics, but certain characteristics are found only on the X and Y chromosome. Now, the problem with that is that the the Y chromosome typically is shorter and does not have whatever gene you're looking for. So it's usually only found on the X chromosome. So if you're a girl and you get 2 X chromosomes, then you have the disease. If you're a guy, you only can get an X and a Y. So you will get the disease because there's nothing on the Y to cover it up. Okay. So you have, a lot of the recessive genes that are sex linked show up in males more than females because there's a greater possibility that there's nothing to mask it. So even though it's a recessive trait, it will show up because there's nothing on that X chromosome. On the Y chromosome to cover up the situation on the X. All right, so I'm going to show you a short video, and she's going to, and this will help because it summarizes everything I just said. I hope I put it on there. And it's in its form of a graphic organizer. So it's easy for you to study. And again, your test is next Friday. So it is, okay, flow chart.
Hi everyone, this video is to go along with the types of inheritance flow chart. This is a great tool to review before your unit assessment, to just kind of categorize and break down how do each of these 4 types of inheritance compare and contrast. So let's go ahead and first identify what types of inheritance we're looking at. We're looking at simple dominance, incomplete dominance, codominance, and X-linked. Okay, you're going to see some similarities between the first 3 that you aren't going to see on the 4th. So let's go ahead and begin with simple dominance. Okay, simple dominance is autosomal. What that means is it occurs on non-sex chromosomes. Okay, and in simple dominance, only one allele is totally dominant and overrides another allele known as the recessive allele. So only one allele is dominant and overrides or overshadows the other recessive allele, okay? So for example, capital B is going to be dominant. If you have capital B genotype, it's going to be the dominant phenotype. If you have capital B lowercase b, it's still going to be that dominant phenotype because it's going to override it, okay? And this inherited form is from both parents. Both parents. You get one allele from mom, one allele from dad, and that's how you get your complete genotype, which represents your phenotype. And some examples of this are dimples, freckles, and widow's peak.
All right, y'all know what widow's peak is, right? We used to call it the Eddie Munster, from the where your hairline just comes in the front like that. That's an inherited trait. All right, I messed with it.
And the example I gave is also tongue rolling. Okay. Now,
I'm gonna pause that. Did we talk about that before? How many of y'all can roll your tongue? Can you do that? That's an inherited trait. Everybody can't do that. You wish. Okay. I got one. No. Most of y'all have shown me that you can. Okay. All right. That's an inherited trait.
the next ones we got into were incomplete and codominance. And I gave you the analogy for incomplete as there is a blend of traits, okay? You cannot be complete without the other one. You are incomplete, you blend. And then codominance, where both individuals or both alleles show up to the party. So incomplete dominance is like simple dominance in the way that it is also carried on autosomes. And again, this is a non-sex linked chromosome. Okay. And in terms of the description of this inheritance, what happens is neither of the alleles are dominant, and therefore in heterozygous individuals, a blend of the alleles is observed in the phenotype. So again, there is going to be a blend of traits. If you are homozygous dominant, you're going to show that trait. If you're homozygous recessive, you're going to show that trait. However, if it's heterozygous, it's going to blend. So again, an example of this would be a red flower and a white flower blending together, and the heterozygous one being pink, okay? And again, this is inherited from both parents. And an example of this would be a red flower is big B, a white flower is little b, and a pink flower or a blend is going to be big B, little b. Or you might see this as A, B, and AB, okay? Now, in codominance, again, This is also an example where you have it carried on autosomes, or again, non-sex-linked chromosomes. And in this type of inheritance, the way I would describe this is both alleles are dominant, and therefore in heterozygous individuals, both alleles are observed directly in that phenotype. So you're not going to get a blend of traits in this one. You are actually going to see both alleles show up at the same time in those heterozygous individuals, okay? So both of the alleles are dominant, and therefore in heterozygous individuals, both alleles are observed directly in the phenotype. And again, this is inherited by both parents. And examples of this would be in blood type. You could have type A, you can have type B, but you can also have AB.
All right, this is the one I was saying that the only fallacy I have with this was she doesn't talk about O. So there are 4 blood types. Okay. And again, the reason why she probably left it out is because type O is the absence of the A allele or the B. So you either have one or the other or both or none. Okay, so type O really means 0. But she doesn't mention it, but just remember there are 4 blood types.
Another example of this would be sickle cell anemia, okay? Last but not least, we have X-linked inheritance. And for the first time, this is going to be inherited differently than the other 3. And this is inherited on the sex chromosome. More specifically, it's carried predominantly on the X chromosome. Okay? And a description of this would be, it is usually recessive, meaning that females or XX have to have 2 of those chromosomes to exhibit the trait. However, it can be different, but most of our examples, it's going to have to be homozygous recessive in order for a female to actually get that trait. In males, however, it's only carried on the X chromosome, and therefore they only need 1 of those recessive alleles in order to inherit that trait. So again, it is usually recessive in nature, meaning that females have to have 2 affected X chromosomes to exhibit the trait. And that's why males are more likely to inherit X-linked traits due to the fact they only have 1 X chromosome, okay? And once again, this is inherited. Males get it from mom because they're getting that X chromosome from both parents because they're getting an X from mom and an X from dad. So males get X from mom. Females get X from mom and dad, okay? And examples of this are color blindness, hemophilia, and muscular dystrophy. And also we're going to throw this in there, male pattern balding. Okay, so this is a great tool for you guys to review, okay? I would strongly recommend bookmarking this video and also reviewing this for your test. And as always, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
All right. So this, like she said, is a good visual for
taking every opportunity to evolve your vision is why you never lose your edge.
We're supposed to go away. We're gonna look at that next time. All right, so that's the next topic we're gonna look at is pedigree. Y'all have heard the term pedigree mostly when they're breeding dogs. You're trying to get a particular kind of dog, so you breed them to look at their genetic bloodline. All right, so let's go back to types of inheritance. All right, so the video just went through those four, and some of them have different characteristics. Like, look at this person. If you have polygenic, poly means many genes are involved in expressing this particular characteristic. Okay, it's controlled by several genes. Okay, and in this case, eye color. We're going to look at skin color is the same thing. Um, what was the video I was going to show? All right, this one, paleotrophy is quite the opposite. One gene results in different blood types, but it also is responsible for sickle cell anemia. So you see in the picture, you're supposed to have a nice round donut-shaped red blood cells. With sickle cell, they're actually what they call sickle-shaped, kind of a long elongated shape, but this shape doesn't carry as much oxygen as the rounded one. So this is why sickle cell anemia is usually people with sickle cell anemia usually see them with an oxygen tank because they are can't the blood cells cannot carry the correct amount of oxygen. All right, sex-linked traits again are only found. The gene is usually only found on the X chromosome. XX is female, XY is male. So if it's on the and it's recessive, so like she said, if for a female to have it, she has to get two X's with the gene, from one from mom, one from dad. Both were carriers of the trait. And then if that's a male, you're going to get X from mom and Y from dad. And mom's gene has the recessive trait, it's going to show up because there's nothing to mask it on the Y chromosome. All right. I want you to go through this activity and answer the questions. Also, like I said, a couple of you have not completed your other worksheet. So I want you to work this out. So again, we have a red flower at the top, and that is dominant. We have a white flower on the side, that is recessive. And so, like I said before, anytime you have pure dominant with pure recessive, you get 100% heterozygous. Okay, in this case, we're getting 100% incomplete dominance. We're getting pink instead of getting red or white. All right, so answer these questions. Make sure you look at the before you go. And then if you have completed your worksheet and there's nothing that you owe me, go ahead and start reading about pedigree, because our next activity is to learn how to do a pedigree chart. Okay, so start reading that if you have completed all of your work. If you have not completed all of your work, that's what you need to work on right now while I do attendance. Okay, somebody is missing. Imani. Mhm. All right, so again, you're completing any worksheets that you haven't turned in yet, or you are playing the little challenge thing at the end of Incomplete Inheritance. And then I'm going to give you a challenge in a minute. Yeah, it's got you in twice actually. So you were in, it must have kicked you out, and now you're trying to get back in because you're on the screen twice. Alrighty. Ah, well, your name was on the screen. I didn't mark you absent. That's probably why you was kind of stuck because it let you in, but it didn't let you in. Yeah, it is weird. Zoom has been doing that a lot lately. How about you're good? You're in now. All right, folks. I want you to take a look at right. So if you're in Canvas and you were working and you were reading the types of inheritance, you're welcome. If you're reading types of inheritance, I want you to click on the next slide, and we're going to look at a worksheet on sex-linked inheritance. All right, so there's a special way that you write the chromosomes for when we do sex link. So normally what we've been doing is just writing an X or a Y, or we're writing a capital Y or a capital T. Now we're going to have special little notations on our chromosomes. So the X and Y indicates that it's male or female. So we're expressing two things. Okay, we're expressing that whether the individual is a male or a female, but we're also expressing whether they are carrying a particular trait. So I want you to read the paragraph, but in particular, they're talking about the diseases that are typically two very popular diseases that are sex linked are hemophilia and color blindness. Okay, hemophilia is a deficiency where they don't have the gene that's necessary for blood clotting, which means they could bleed to death. If they don't have the ability for their blood to clot when they get cut, that you have to rush them to the hospital. A clotting formula has to be given to them, or they will bleed to death because they don't have the ability to clot on their own. All right, color blindness usually means that you can only see certain colors. Okay. All right, so this is how we write the X and Y chromosomes. So this one, then they've given you a chart up here. So if we're going to be a female, and the female is XX, so you have to be a female, you have to get an X chromosome from mom and get an X chromosome from dad. That makes you female. All right, so dad is the determining factor. All right, capital H means that they have the gene for blood clotting is normal. So this person written like that does not have hemophilia. All right. So again, you're going to put that capital H on the X, and there's nothing on the other X. Okay. But it's normal because it's capital H. And again, these diseases are recessive. All right. So again, with the second one, the female has a lowercase h on her X chromosome on one of them. And even though there's nothing, so there's nothing on the other X chromosome to stop it. So they are recessive for hemophilia. Okay. This one is Y. They don't contain, it doesn't exist on the Y chromosome, so you don't have to put any H's on your Ys. Over here, they were using capital B for color blindness, so not for being normal vision, lowercase b for colorblind. And again, there's no gene on the Y chromosome. So what they want you to do is to take this information up here and show that you understood that by rewriting them on the appropriate lines. All right. And then we're going to cross these parents, put them in a Punnett square, and then tell the results of how many children are going to be colorblind and how many male children are colorblind and how many female children are colorblind. So here you just have to give a percentage. Remember, each box is worth 25%. So it's either 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100%. Okay, so make sure you're looking at what the question is asking you for. These are all asking you for percentage. Okay. All righty. All right, everybody understand what you have to do with? I'm gonna see if I can't put one of those on Canvas and show you. It's a PDF. I can't write on mine either. Let me see if I can't convert it. Um, Can't even copy and paste it. Make them. All right, real quick. We got like 2 minutes. Took me that long to draw it. Sometimes doing it with technology is so interesting. All right, so your first box, after you've identified all of the information, at the top. So you're going to put, these are your, let me see if I can make that. This was the question for number 1 on the worksheet. And X and X are female and the XY is your male. And so when you do the same thing, but now we've got some extra letters, so you got to make sure you tag your X and Y's, your X's with what they're supposed to have. So in this first box up here, because B is normal, you're going to have females. So it asks you for percentage. You're going to have 50% of them are going to be females, and they are going to have normal vision because those big B's are going to be dominant over the little B's. So these are going to be 50%. It asks you for percentage. 50% of the offspring will be female, and they will have normal vision. They're not going to be colorblind. 50% will be male. So XY is a male, but they have the lowercase b. All of them have, actually, this one is, actually, I did that wrong. Okay, let me back that up. Okay, it should be X capital B. And this will also be X capital B. All right, that's correct now because you have to get both, mom has both capital B's. All right, so they're 50% female, normal vision, 50% male, normal vision. So that's question number one. So I just did that for you. All right. No, so what portion of the males will be colorblind? 0. What portion of the females will be colorblind? 0. They're all going to have normal vision. Okay, so it's okay to say 0. Because in this case, none of them, because of the capital B's, none of them will be colorblind. Because even with this X over here, it's matched up with a dominant B over here. Okay, so these are carriers. The girls are carriers, so they can give away an X with a lowercase b, but they are not colorblind. All right, it's time to go. Have a nice lunch. See you tomorrow. And we'll finish working on these tomorrow as well as talk about pedigree. All righty,